now that people are actually emerging from their holes, I'm starting to see the same kind of self-interested attitude that has been so disappointing in recent years. And so I'm a little worried.
That was author Alia Volz. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco. Happy 415 Day, y'all. In this episode, Alia picks up where she left off in part 1, with stories of when she was a kid joining her mom when her mom made the rounds selling pot brownies in San Francisco. The freewheeling days of the late 70s gave way to illness, pain, and death when AIDS hit the city, in the gay community in particular. Leaving the days Alia wrote about in Home Baked behind, she talks about travels to Europe, where she began writing, and South America, which was cut short when her mom got sick. But spending time with her mom led to recording oral histories, and that eventually led to Alia's book, which comes out in paperback next week. She shares the very San Francisco story of her wedding with Kevin Hunsanger, whom you might remember from season 2 of this podcast. And she ends this episode with her thoughts and hopes for what's next in her hometown of San Francisco. Here's Alia.
Okay, my first memory is of splashing in a puddle. It must have been outside the warehouse. It was in the Mission. And I remember very clearly what socks I was wearing. I had like striped tights and Chinese brocade shoes that you could get in Chinatown. And I was splashing in a puddle, and my mom said, "Don't play in that, it might be pee."
Yeah.
And that's it.
That is, that's like a...
First memory.
Other cities, but also a very specific San Francisco.
Yeah, and it was...
It's our version of Don't Eat the Yellow Snow, kind of, right?
Yeah. And it stuck with me, though, in a way. So the way that I spent my earliest years was also going out with my mom on brownie runs.
Right.
So she would put me in the stroller, and she would load the stroller up with cannabis brownies and take me with her into the Castro. And this is pre-AIDS Castro, so it was wall-to-wall guys. And I also have these early flashes of memory of being fawned over and, this really loving, celebratory vibe, this genderless vibe as there's drag queens out and everything in between. We went to Sylvester's house all the time. And so it was this really glittery, colorful, creative feeling. And I felt so much a part of the city. I felt embedded. And so I think that one of the reasons that memory was so shocking that it stuck in my mind was like, how could something that is just part of me be bad, that I need to avoid it, that I can't play in? Of course I can play in it. It's my world. I mean, I felt so strongly associated with my environment. And in some ways I think I still do. And maybe that's how we all are with our hometowns. It feels like an extension of personality.
Say, obviously formative.
Yeah.
Part of who you are today, and you have been your whole life. That's a strong impression. I would say, and not a common one.
Right.
Not a lot of people have that.
Right.
Experience. Do you want to, because you do spend a good amount of time of it in the book, do you want to talk about specifically your experiences? You were pretty young, but with AIDS.
Oh, sure. So having grown up very much at my mom's side while she was doing her deals, many of her customers over the years were also close family friends. And so I had a lot of surrogate uncles and aunties, and the majority of these people were from within the LGBTQ plus community. It was really homey to me, and where I felt safe, where I felt loved, right? And so AIDS began to emerge right at the beginning of the 80s. I think my mom's first customer died in 82 that I was able to trace. And then people started getting sick and dying. And so I'm 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, coming with my mom. At that time, we'd moved out of the city temporarily, but she was coming down to sell brownies, and I often came with her, and would see people change so dramatically from one visit to the next,
Right.
and then they started disappearing, and when you're a kid, I mean, it's certainly traumatic, but when you're a kid, you also just absorb things.
Right.
And I came from in a way, like an Alice in Wonderland kind of an environment where things were always changing and personalities were changing and people were changing. And so there was a way that I absorbed it at the time. As I got older and understood what was happening, there was a more intense confrontation. We started losing people that I knew and cared about. And I have really intense memories from being like 9, 10 years old and going with my mom on deliveries into homes where people were basically on death's door. And there's definitely a lot of grief and trauma around that. I also think often about how much I learned and how fortunate I was to learn about bravery and compassion at a young age. Is there's nothing braver than young people caring for each other as they're dying. I mean, it was just an extraordinary. There was an extraordinary amount of love, an extraordinary amount of bravery and courage, and the government was just doing nothing, and there were no there was no vaccine, there were no resources, or very few resources, and so it was the community really taking care of its own.
And your mom, in a sense, was part of that.
Sure.
Right? Like she was providing, I don't want to say a service. She was definitely providing a product.
Service.
A product
Yeah.
for, but in a sense, adding to that compassion and sense of hospice. And
Sure. I mean, I think it was a time when everyone here was doing what they could, right? So people were volunteering for buddy programs to take people to their hospital visits, or Meals on Wheels to deliver food, or whatever you could do, you did. Well, this was really when medical cannabis emerged. And so my book is largely about how medical cannabis was born out of this community.
Right.
In the 70s, my mom was distributing these brownies, and they were a party drug. It was all for fun. It was all for creativity and
Get high, man.
Right. I mean, and people were really into it then. These were disco days. Sure. So when that changed, what my mom and others of her ilk, so she was really close with Dennis Perone, and Brownie Mary was doing this, of course. And so what she and other cannabis providers caught onto pretty quickly was that cannabis helped with some of the common symptoms. I mean, they helped with the wasting syndrome, which was one of the biggest killers. It helped with the terrible nausea, the crippling depression, the insomnia, the pain, and various other things that people still use it to treat today, right? And this was in no way medically sanctioned. It was an awareness that came out of the community itself. This helps nausea. Let's provide it.
Right.
There's no effective medicine for this, and it worked better than any of the antiemetics on the market produced by pharma. So naturally, this was the direction that it went in. And at that time, my mom started doing a lot more home deliveries.
Right.
Instead of, there were no more routes to businesses, really. People would come over to our house, but it was also a lot of home deliveries to people who were too sick to go out. And so, that is a service.
I love it. In my more hopeful moments now and over the last year, I'm like, there are similarities, right? Lack of government response, or ineptitude of government response, and real pain in real communities. And again, in my more kind of optimistic moments, like the things I try to latch onto this stuff, but like the things that people are doing for each other. I see a little bit of it here and there. I've seen it in my personal life, and it's like, but this was different. This was on a scale. Well, it was just different. Similarities, but differences in.
There were a lot of similarities. The most crucial differences, of course, were that around AIDS there was a lot of victim blaming,
Stigmatization.
oh
for sure.
yeah, and I mean the government response was not entirely different.
Right.
Reagan refused to say the word AIDS for the first. He first said it in 1985. It started killing people in 1981. His first speech about AIDS was not until 1987, and he didn't speak about LGBTQ people once in that speech, except for there was a mention of someone who's closeted and gets their wife sick.
Oh, right.
So it was
So how
really,
it affects street people, in other words.
yeah. I mean, it was really bad. And he had Pat Buchanan was his press
That makes
secretary.
all the sense in the world. Jeez. Yeah,
Or
the
no,
Trump
I'm sorry.
administration did not invent ineptitude.
Speaks was the press secretary, but Pat Buchanan, I'm trying to remember what his role is. Anyway, he was high up in government.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, the evangelical, homophobic, bigoted angle was really strong, and it had a lot to do with how long this went on. There was not an effective treatment for AIDS-related symptoms until 1996.
96, yeah.
96. It's
Yeah.
15 years.
Yeah.
And people were just dying. It was awful. It was very hard to get national attention because there was this narrative that you get AIDS if you do bad things.
Right.
And so that was really powerful and awful.
Or if you are bad.
Yeah. Well, it was the queers and it was IV drug users.
Right. Was it the Bay Area Reporter, the newspaper that much later, had the headline "No Deaths
No
Today"?
bits this week. Yeah, no bits.
That that is, in addition to stories, allegories that I've heard from folks who were there, that is impressive. Just that it had to get to that point. Can we start the talk of your life after the end of the book?
Sure.
Maybe if your mom wrote the book of your life.
Oh my God. Well, let's see. So it gets patchy after a while.
Okay.
Let's see. I did leave the city. I have to think now. I left the city in 2000.
Okay.
And we had lived in Sonoma County and then back.
North,
We lived in Mendocino County and then back. So
Right.
different areas of Northern California at different times. But I left the country in 2000 and traveled I was in Spain for a year after that, and then different parts of Europe, just kind of wandering around broke and doing that thing.
By yourself?
I was by myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I walked the Camino de Santiago, which is a 790 kilometer pilgrimage across Spain.
Just a walk in the park.
Yeah. I felt
Wow.
like a walk. And it was spontaneous. I was just in the area.
Okay.
And I didn't even have hiking shoes. So I had to kind of pick stuff, and I had no money, and I had to kind of gather resources along the way. But that was amazing. Of course, it was a very transformational period, and that was really when I started writing.
And you're in your kind of mid or early
Early
mid
20s. At that point, early 20s.
Early 20s. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe 22, I think. And I started writing because I was traveling alone and got into the habit for the first and really last time in my life of keeping a journal. I'm not a diary person.
Okay.
I wish I was, because I could draw on it now, but
Right.
but it's just never been my thing. But I got into the habit of it then, and I found that I really liked how writing changed the way I understood the world and the way I experienced things on a sensory level. It made things more vivid for me to write about them. So after that, I went to college for a little while. I went into a writing program, eventually dropped out of that to go to Cuba, where I went to the University of Havana for a year.
Okay.
Lived in different parts of South America. But yeah, I spent a good 2-3 years, I guess, in different parts of Latin America, and was not intending to come back, but then my mom got sick.
Okay.
So she had hepatitis C, still does. It doesn't go away,
Right.
but it was active, and she was in danger at that point. So she got into an experimental drug program.
Was she still up here?
She
in the Bay
no,
Area,
she
or-
was living in Mexico.
Okay.
Actually, at the time, but she needed to move to LA to get into this program, and she was desperate. She was pretty sick, and it was not at the time it had a 40% success rate, so it was pretty hairy.
Risky.
Yeah, so I came from Cuba directly to Mexico to gather her and bring her to LA, in fact.
Okay.
Where she went on this program. And it was while she was sick that I started recording the stories that became the backbone of Home Baked.
Okay.
My original reason for doing the recordings was that I was looking at my mom's mortality, and some of these stories I just absolutely love and had been hearing my whole life and could request them like a jukebox,
Yes.
right? So I started requesting my favorites and recording them, thinking I'll want to hear them in her voice
Right.
someday if I lose her. When I lose her,
Right,
it's
right,
inevitable
right.
someday. But then the stories raised questions. And I would ask questions, and she might say, you should talk to Barb about that, or you should ask your dad. So from there, it spread exponentially, and I started gathering these interviews. By the time I was done, I'd interviewed 65 people, I think, ranging from, insiders within the business to customers to police officers.
When in the process did you realize this could be a book, or should?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I once I started spreading the interviews out and following that thread, I had the sense that I was researching a book, but I didn't know what it was going to look like. And for a long time, I didn't know what it was going to look like. I actually shopped a version of this book as an oral history in 2009, and it didn't sell. It was just rejected by every house in New York.
Okay.
And at the time, a lot of editors said that cannabis was too niche of a subject,
Okay.
that it wouldn't interest a broad enough demographic.
Sure.
Boy, has that changed.
Yeah.
Also, I'm glad that it didn't get published then, because it's a much better book now.
Right.
I hadn't found the right shape for it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a combination of factors. But when I went out with it in 2018, the response from publishing was completely
Night
different.
and day.
Yeah.
So then oral history pitched in 2009, 18 it's pitched as a book.
As a researched memoir.
A research memoir. How much of it had been written
By
at
the
that
time I sold
point?
it?
Yeah.
A little less than half, but my proposal included one chapter.
Okay.
And
Because it's not a small book.
it got big. It's almost exactly 420 pages. We missed it by 4 pages.
Can you do like a third epilogue or something?
I know,
Just to-
right? Well, by the time I noticed that,
Or like raise the
they
font
were
a
like,
little bit.
I know. We missed such a
Smaller
good
pages, I
Easter
don't
egg
know.
with that.
Yeah. So, for listeners, just to set the stage, Alia's life partner, fair to say husband?
Fair to say husband.
I meant fair to say life partner, but also husband, because that is a fact,
Right.
is Kevin Hunsanger, who was on the podcast a couple years ago. Can we hear the story of y'all's wedding?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so
And like what year and
Uh-huh.
if you don't mind.
yeah, it actually ties in because I had the last time I moved back here, I came out for a boyfriend who was not worth it. That's classic. But and then I kind of got stuck because I didn't have the funds together to leave, and I was scraping money together. I was aiming for Brazil when I met Kevin, and we connected really strongly. Had a wonderful romantic process.
Sure.
I don't know, it remains wonderful and romantic. And that was, we
Awesome.
met in 2007, I think.
Okay.
And fell in love. And he was at the time one of the co-owners of Green Apple Books and could not extricate himself easily from the business. So I ended up staying and canceling my plans to leave, which is part of why I'm still itching to go. Decided to get married, which was something I never wanted to do, never thought I would do. But we were so so much enjoying ourselves that I would say that we got married in a way to have a party, like
Right.
as a reason to celebrate,
Right.
right?
Right.
As a reason to celebrate being in love. And he's such a San Francisco character, and I'm so baked into the city that we both brought these entire groups of creatives with us, kind of.
Sorry, I like the pun, baked in.
I know. It's they're everywhere. I avoid them sometimes. I indulge sometimes. But anyway, so we got married on April Fool's Day. Easy date to remember.
Happy anniversary.
Couple of fools in love. Thank you. We got married at City Hall, and then we had our party at Jelly's 4 days later, which was on a Saturday, and it was a couple hundred people, and we had 2 bands play, and Sarah, who was the chef at the front porch at the time, did the food, and it was really fun and a very San Francisco thing. Well, Ron Turner and his wife Carol Silverman. Ron is, of course, of Last Gasp fame.
And also a former guest on this show as well.
Yeah, so he was somebody I knew through Kevin,
Okay.
Ron and Carol, and just adored them. I mean, they're the most San Francisco people that San Francisco has ever San Francisco'd. So
Yeah, correct.
right. So they came, and Carol took one look at my mom and said, "Merity?"
Whoa.
And as it turned out, they had been in a mother's group together. And this was in 1977 while they were both pregnant. And they were in a group that was getting together on a weekly basis to talk about alternative methods of mothering, because people were really exploring different ideas in child rearing at the time.
Experimenting.
Really experimenting. Yeah. And they had become close friends, and it turns out that the warehouse was just a couple of blocks from Last Gasp, and that Ron and Carol and my folks all knew each other and hung out together, and I had played with their kid, and we had no idea. I'd been hanging out with Ron and Carol through Kevin.
Right. Not knowing.
Having no idea that there was this connection. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, we had a beautiful time at Jelly's, which is no longer.
No longer with us.
Yeah, and then we had our after party in the back room at Tosca,
Yes.
which is also no longer with us.
Right.
Right. And
That's so special.
yeah, Sean Penn tried to get in and was denied.
Fuck yeah. Fuck that guy. We're having a wedding
Which
back
is a
here.
story
Come on.
that Jeanette loves to tell. She just thought that was so funny.
Yeah. Well, if Ron Turner is the San Francisco-iest San Francisco that ever San Francisco'd, I think y'all's wedding might be the San Francisco-iest wedding that ever San Francisco'd.
I'll take it.
Okay.
I mean, we didn't do it on Mount Tam.
I think we've kind of got a lot of that stuff that I wanted to get. Thank you. Do you care to speak to... I guess the question would be, what are your hopes for the next iteration of San Francisco?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been really interesting on so many levels coming through this era. I think initially we saw the community kind of banding together, and there's been a sense that will come out of this different, changed from how we went into it. Now that people are actually emerging from their holes, I'm starting to see the same kind of self-interested attitude that has been so disappointing in recent years, and so I'm a little worried. Mm-hmm. But my hope, of course, is that more art spaces will become available, that the housing market, which is starting to change, will become more accessible, and that it can again become a center for creativity and a leader in alternative and experimental thinking. Do I actually think that will happen? I'm on the fence.
Are you going to stick it out for the time being?
I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly, I have been gearing up to move on for a long time. I always sort of have one foot out the door. And we were making plans to move to Portugal, actually, when the pandemic hit. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not sure now.
Okay.
If it gets cool again, maybe.
I've heard, as far as EU countries, that Portugal is one of the easier, maybe shorter, like
Yeah.
faster process.
Exactly.
And it's also Portugal.
Right. Well, that's one of the main reasons that we've been looking at it, is that it's one of the easier places for to expatriate.
My eye doctor was correct. She's the one who told me that. Like, okay, cool. I knew.
Yeah.
I like to know those things.
Right. Well, it's been a plan for a long time. I did not mean to be living in San Francisco again as an adult. I mean, as I said, I've traveled quite a bit, and I've always wanted to settle in a different place. I get so restless, and somehow this is the easiest place for me to land, even though my family is no longer here.
The magnets.
Huh?
It's the magnets.
It's the magnets. How do they work?
That was Alia Volz. On the next episode of Storied San Francisco, you'll get to know comedian Larry Dorsey Jr. Please join us next week. Music for the podcast was produced, performed, and curated by Otis MacDonald. Original photography is by Michelle Kilfeather. Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast is our contributing producer. The show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 4th season, we have nearly 150 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you can, subscribe, rate, and review our show so that we can reach even more folks. And if you'd like to drop us an old-fashioned email, we'd love it. The address is storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcasts.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.